Hi everyone, this is Invalesco. As promised, this is an update and a guide to my Righteous Fire Templar build in Hardcore. This build is oriented around this particular skill called Righteous Fire. You can use it in two ways. You can use it as your primary DPS skill, like one of the Build of the Week series that Grinding Gear Games has shown, or in my case, you can use it as a spell damage buff, because if you notice, it provides 81% more spell damage. This is for a level 18 Righteous Fire, and it provides 15% increased spell damage for a fully qualified Righteous Fire. This build is oriented around a few keystones, namely Zealot's Oath, the Inner Force Cluster, Elemental Adaptation, Ghost River. It's somewhat of a difficult build to make because it is quite difficult to gear. You need to maintain a decent amount of HP in order to survive chaos damage in maps. You need to try and max out your chaos resistance so as to minimize the amount of damage you take via chaos damage, and you need to make sure that the amount of energy shield you have is high enough such that the regen to your energy shield due to this particular keystone, Zealot's Oath, is higher than the amount of damage you take from Righteous Fire. I'll use my character as an example. So let's say my health is at 2031. Righteous Fire causes you to burn for 100% of a maximum life per second as fire damage. However, due to the Inner Force Cluster, which increases the effect of buffs on you by 30%, you actually burn for 130% of your maximum life per second as fire damage. In my case, because my HP is 2000, I burn for about 2600 damage per second. Hence, therefore, increasing maximum resistance is a very important factor here because it allows you to minimize the damage taken by you. Let me just switch on my auras first. So there's Discipline, Vitality, and Purity. Because of Inner Force, my maximum resistances is increased by 5% from Purity. Add to that the 5% from Elemental Adaptation. I currently stand at 85% to all my elemental resistances, but fire resistance is the one that you should focus on. So for instance, if I take 2600 damage, due to my fire resistance, I actually take about 390 damage per second. Because of my high energy shield, as well as the fact that I take life regen notes from the tree, 1.0% tier, 1.5% tier, 0.4% tier, as well as the 1.5% from Vitality, which due to Inner Force is buffed by a further 30%. I'm able to maintain myself at 419 ES regen per second. This is without endurance charges as well. So for instance, I use Enduring Cry to collect endurance charges. I have a total limit of 6 endurance charges, 1 over here, 2 over here, and 3 from Oak, adding up to a total of 6. When I have all my endurance charges on, because I have this particular node which generates 0.2% of my maximum life regenerated per second per endurance charge, I have an additional 1.2% of maximum life regenerated per second, or in this case, because of Zealot's Oath, maximum ES. However, since my energy shield is high enough, I can maintain my energy shield without the need for endurance charges, although I can use it for protection and for additional regeneration in maps later on, which you will see. So this is my current DPS and skills. Basically this Firestorm, this Ice Nova, and this Freezing Pulse. Now I'll switch on Righteous Fire. As you can see, my energy shield has not dropped at all. However, my DPS now has increased to 2840 for Freezing Pulse, 1.5k for Firestorm, and then 1.3k for Ice Nova. Some people ask me why I chose to make a Righteous Fire build Templar in Hardcore. Well, number one, because it looks cool. Look at this. It looks awesome, doesn't it? and secondly because I don't think something like this had been attempted before, so I decided to just try it out in hardcore and see how it went. Alright, let's do a map. The map I'll be doing is I wanted to roll 2 Brutus actually, but I ran out of currency, so this will have to do. As you can see, there is a mod there in which it says that players take 21.7 chaos damage per second. However, my chaos resistance is currently at 75%, so I actually take only 5 damage per second. In order to counter that, I can use a flask. However, this would cause my Righteous Fire to switch off because it has Dispel Burning. But in my case, I choose to counteract it by gearing up on items that have plus life on kill, such as this one here, which plus 6 life gained when you kill an enemy, which goes straight to your life pool, as well as this ring, which adds another 6 life gained when you kill an enemy. I had a pair of gloves that increased my life gain by 10, but I had to upgrade it for this because of the resistances. Let's try this map. This is quite a fun build because it enables me to be a tank, as well as to use that form of tankiness and translate it into extra DPS. As you can see, my HP pool is slowly decreasing. If at any point of time I feel threatened, I'm able to press a button, switch off Righteous Fire, and start regenerating my ES rapidly. Or I can even use a Ruby Flask, as you can see here, and just increase my resistances. Because I use Ghost Reaver and because I have Life Leech attached to my Righteous Fire, my energy shield is usually maintained quite fully. Some people use a Quicksilver Flask. For me, I prefer to use a Ruby Flask with extra movement speed, because as you can see, it actually... Okay, for example, I'll switch it on after this. Okay, my energy shield isn't increasing, but once I press a Ruby Flask, as you can see, it's increasing quite rapidly. Because my Righteous Fire does about 1000 damage per second, I can use it as an adjuvant to my primary DPS skills. So for instance, because you usually have to get close to enemies anyway to do Freezing Pulse, when they come closer to you, they will get damage from both Freezing Pulse as well as... Oh, 6 Socket Astral Plate. They'll get damage from both Freezing Pulse as well as your Righteous Fire. The curse I use is Elemental Weakness. Because I use both fire spells and ice spells, fire in the form of Righteous Fire as well as from Firestorm. I'll use a granite for extra protection as well, just in case. Alright, let's try to max out my endurance charges. So with 6 endurance charges, you can see that my EGS regen has gone to 521 per second. So that allows me to be rather tanky. Bad thing about Freezing Pulse is that because the damage becomes lower if you are further away from the target due to the dissipation of the Fizzing Pulse projectile. You usually need to stand very close to bosses in order to do damage to them. And in hardcore that can be quite dangerous because for bosses like Val, his melee hit is actually quite dangerous, so he can actually one hit you if you're not careful. Which is why in my case I use Firestorm as well. So here this is where Skelly Totem will come in useful. Sorry for the lag, my laptop is quite bad. So let's say Brutus is there. This is HP, and I can just use Firestorm on him. I can just stand as far as I want to and just Firestorm him to death. This makes me feel like an artillery bomber, which is quite fun. And I'll just... and he's dead. Not much in the way of gear. But yeah, when I want to strike my Righteous Fire, I just press a 100 Life Flask and my ES will regen completely. Alright, let's get out of this map before the chaos damage kills me. My gear is pretty much top end at the moment. I imagine it'll take some of you quite a while to get it. So basically, I used Saphels initially because of the increase in base maximum resistance by 5%, but I managed to find a high energy ES, high energy shield to counteract the damage from Righteous Fire and allow me to actually have some form of defense against physical attacks. So this is my shield. As you can see, my links are mainly, I use Rhyme Gaze because gems in this item are supported by concentrated effect, and this allows me to use it effectively as a 5 link rather than a 4 link for my Firestorm. Firestorm, as you can see here, is more effective if you link it to a concentrated effect gem. I link it to a Cowling Strike, which allows me to kill bosses and any sort of monsters when they are 10% life or less. So this allows me to be effective in a party because bosses and parties have quite a lot of HP and 10% is quite a bit. And it allows me to recharge my flasks faster as well because it allows me to kill monsters and get my flasks recharged. I attached Mana Leech and Iron Will. Iron Will because of my main strength, because I've got 394 strength, it basically provides me with about 79 increased spell damage. Mana Leech so that I won't have any problems with mana. Over here I have Skelly Totem. Here is just my curse, elemental weakness. This is Enduring Cry, it's Molten Shell, and this is Righteous Fire. Over here you have my auras, Purity, reduced mana, Discipline as Vitality. This is Iron Will. This is Ice Nova. It's basically for situations in which I feel surrounded by enemies, for example, such as Flicker Pirates, Flicker Spiders, or Leap Slamming Goatmen. When they swarm you, it's not usually a very good idea to run around because you might desync in the process. So I usually just stay put, switch on a Molten Shell, and you just use Ice Nova, which because of the life leech on it allows me to leech back my energy shield. Yeah, Molten Shell actually does like 11k damage with Righteous Fire on, so it's a tremendous amount of burst damage. My chest piece is probably the highest chest piece in the hardcore at the moment, thanks to Dominion, who actually crafted it and I just mirrored it from him. So it's linked, it's basically Fizzing Pulse, linked with Iron Wheel, Life Leech, again, lesser multiple projectiles, faster casting, and Mana Leech. So actually for essentially a 4-link item because of the damage supports, and with Life Leech and Mana Leech being unnecessary supports if you are the kind who does want to play ultra defensive and have high mana regen. The DPS of 2.8k times 3 is actually pretty high, especially when considering my tree, in which I didn't really take any DPS notes. My rings are, as you can see, provide chaos resistance and some life, but resistances and the chaos resistance is the main key. This is Mana, Energy Shield, Chaos Resistance. With regards to gear, I try to find gear with high Chaos Resistances. So my Chaos Resistances come from this one, this ring, this belt, and this pair of boots. I'm using a unique amulet at the moment, which is Instrumentis, primarily because it provides me with a total of 112 to all attributes. So if you translate it into my build, it's basically 56 extra HP, 56 extra mana, 20% or so extra spell damage, and 20% or so increased maximum energy shield, which is why my energy shield is so high. It also provides me with a substantial amount of dexterity, which I need because of Mana Leech, lesser multiple projectiles, and Culling Strike. So this was just my tree at the moment. As you can see, I didn't take any damage notes at all. This is basically a full tank build because of hardcore, in which I played extremely full tank. I took 2 Chaos Resistances notes here because I was unable to find it on gear due to their scarcity. I took some HP notes to ensure that I had a healthy amount of life, and this has been tested in level 75 maps, and chaos damage with 75% chaos resistances and 2000 HP in level 75 maps actually isn't that much of a problem. I took this note, 25% chance to avoid interruption, because 2000 HP is not that high, and because I do not have immunity to stun. You can get stunned quite frequently if you are tanking mobs, and this note is quite useful. Other than that, let me have a look at what else is interesting here. Yep, this is Ghost Reaver, which applies any life leech to energy shield instead of life. This particle note, Pain Attunement, is pretty interesting as well. It provides 30% more spell damage when on low life. So, because this is hardcore, I try not to go low life. But if you are on default and if you want to take this note, you're welcome to. What you need to do is to attach some auras onto your blood magic gem and get your HP to 35%. So in this case, it should be about, let me do a bit of calculation, probably about 600 to 700 or so. So that's actually quite a very little amount of HP actually, because a chaos mob and a poison arrow archer in the level 75 map can probably, even with 75% chaos resistance, can probably take you down 500 HP in like 3 seconds if you're not careful. Other than that, I'm not sure what else I've missed. Okay, I took this cast speed notes because they improved my damage per second. With regards to progression of the build, I'm currently at level 83, which you can see here. The next few notes I will probably take if I wanted to level this character much higher, which I probably won't because I finish the build and I get bored easily. I would probably take these 2 critical chance notes. I would also probably branch into the entire witch area. I'll take the spell damage notes here, the intel notes here, the cast speed notes here, and the increased spell damage notes here, as well as perhaps the increased critical chance for spells notes here. Just to provide I realized I missed out the description of Righteous Fire. It provides more spell damage, which is not increased spell damage. So for instance, I think let's look at my gear. I have a total of 118% spell damage here, 5%, 123% spell damage here, and because of Iron Will, let's say I have a non-quality Iron Will. Where's Iron Will? It's here. Because every 5 points of strength will increase your spell damage by 1%. So that's 123% plus about 79%. So that's about 202% increased spell damage. So let's say I have 202% increased spell damage without Righteous Fire. Now that I switch on Righteous Fire, 81% more spell damage of 202% spell damage is actually about 160% increased spell damage on top of it. So in total I have about 362% increased spell damage, which is quite a substantial amount. Add to that how cool Righteous Fire looks, and I think this is probably about one of the most fun characters I've played so far, together with my CI Dagger Shadow. I hope you guys have enjoyed this short guide to this character. I probably won't be doing a write-up on forums because I think this video will probably do. And that's all from me.